Okay, welcome all to the third and the final webinar of the semester, which is organized by the Linguistics Department of USP. And today we are indeed very grateful to our line of presenters who are really doing great work in the region as far as sign language and its advocacy is going on. And we have a great person who will be our moderator today with almost more than 2 decades of experience in inclusive education. I have much pleasure in inviting the moderator for the session, Merelesita Geleni, to take us through the session. Vinaka.
Thank you, Rajan. Big Bulavinaka, Malolele, Maori. Hello, Talofalava to all our listeners who have joined us this afternoon. Again, welcome to the third seminar on language matters in the Pacific with a special focus on sign languages in the Pacific. And this afternoon, we are very fortunate to have with us a mix of panelists. We have our deaf adults, a linguist, also a mother. We have a mother of a child with disability. And of course, we have our sign language interpreters who will be translating and voicing for our deaf friends. And so to begin with, I would like to invite our panel members to introduce themselves. And I'd also like to request them to talk a little about their experiences and connection to sign languages. Can we begin with Krishna, please?
Bulavinaka, I am Krishna, and this is my sign name. And because I love to have my hair parted this side, I am from Singatoka. I am a linguist. I am a deaf linguist, and I studied that in Hong Kong. I did some research on sign language here in Fiji, and I'm also a co-lead for the Disability Pride Hub. And I've got 2 sign language interpreters working with me. Gail is voicing over right now, and there is Aurelia. And I'm excited to be presenting and to be sharing with you this afternoon. Thank you.
Naka Krish, can Keisha introduce yourself, please? Excuse me, I'm sorry. I think we were not able to hear Acacia. Yes. Do you have your interpreter with you? Could you repeat yourself, please? So that, so that we can hear her. If she could move closer to the laptop, maybe.
Okay,
Mary. Mary. Okay. Mary, everyone. Apologies for not being able to hear me. My name is Kesa. That's my sign name. Because in our deaf culture, deaf people can't call, so we should use sign. And I'm from Kiribati, a small island in the Pacific. And I am currently working at a mainstream high school as a teacher aide, looking after deaf students in the mainstream school. So it's my pleasure to see you all this evening. I'm so keen to share my experience with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Keisha. Lupe?
Good afternoon and welcome everyone from the Kingdom of Tonga, Malolele. My name is Lupe Punaiwaha and I work as the office manager for the Tonga National Deaf Association here in Tonga. My connection to sign language is both professional and personal. My daughter Faith is deaf, and through her journey, I have learned how important the need of access to communication, sign language, and for the families to support their deaf children and their future as well. Faith uses sign language as her form of communication, and this experience has opened my eyes to the challenges many deaf people and families face here in Tonga, and I'm pretty sure across the Pacific as well. Through my work with the deaf community, I've been involved in supporting deaf adults and families, sign language awareness, and projects focused on developing and documenting the sign language in Tonga. One important goal that we are currently running right now is documenting our sign language, TSL. There has never been a Tongan Sign Language officiated here in Tonga, so we are in the progress in doing that right now with the Tonga National Deaf Association, so that our deaf people in Tonga can have better access to education, communication, and inclusion as well. That's so far from me. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Lupe. Well, there's a lot of work happening in Tonga. And to our last panel member, Rachel, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I'm really happy to be here with this wonderful panel. My name is Rachel Miles, and I am a linguist. I am living in Vanuatu, and I'm here with SIL Global. And our goals here are to really support the deaf throughout their lifetime. So I have some collaborations with the Ministry of Education here in Vanuatu, as well as with a school called Pickaninny Playtime, where there are some deaf children attending. And also I'm helping to support the Vanuatu Deaf Association here in their community development work. My previous linguistics research was on a new sign language here in Vanuatu, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the panel. So thank you all, and good afternoon from Vanuatu.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Now, there has been a lot of information sharing just recently through the introductions, and it's good to know that there's a lot of work happening in the region, in our regional countries. And we are making strides towards success of sign language in regional countries. Okay, now there are some myths or misconceptions out there about sign languages. And that's where our discussions will start. Could we start? Could I ask the students if you could mute your mic, please? Could the listeners ensure that your mic is muted? Okay, thank you. We'll try our best to work through this noise. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of misconceptions and myths out there about sign languages. And one of those is that there is only one single language that everyone uses. Could we talk about that as our first focus this afternoon? Maybe we could start with Rachel and followed by Krish.
Yes, thank you for bringing up this question. I think it's very important to address at the beginning. So sign languages are the natural languages of deaf people, and they are created by deaf people. So the same reason that hearing people who live in different countries and never interact with each other would not speak the same language, deaf people who live in different places and don't interact with each other are going to have their own languages. And some of my research here is actually looking at how a new language starts. So if you get deaf people together, then they're going to communicate with each other, and that is where sign languages come from.
Thank you, Rachel. Krish, would you like to add on?
So sign language is it's a complex language. We have the use of the 5 parameters of sign language. This is shortened as HOME. It is the hand shapes, the facial expression with the orientation of hands and the my apologies. Okay, so we'll talk about home. The hand shapes, the location of the hands, the orientation of the hands, the movement, and the location of where the hand is placed. So it is this with the spoken language and sign language. It's similar. It's different in the different countries that we use it in, according to context. So, for example, in the English sentence, let me give an example. The cat is sleeping under the table. Right? For sign language, with the use of the 5 parameters, we will not follow the structure in which the English language is placed. We use facial expression, we use body language, and hand shapes to describe the same. So there's a flat, the hand is flat that shows the table, and there is the bent V to show that that's the cat sleeping underneath the table. Right? So there's a different structure in which the sign, the language, or the words are placed. So, for example, this bent V is the symbol of a cat, is sleeping under the table. So the cat is located under the table. And the hand, the flat hand, is showing the structure of the table. And the facial expression to go with that, a little bit slanted. The head is a little bit slanted with a closed eye. It shows that the cat is asleep.
Thank you, Krish. Can you tell us if there's only one sign language in Fiji? Do all the deaf in Fiji use one sign language? Or are there different sign languages in different parts of Fiji?
Thank you. So Fiji has created a national sign language, but there is language variation depending on context, where the deaf live, the location, right? There's most, the deaf are Itoke, right? In the West, we'll have a lot of Indo-Fijians that are deaf there. And in the context that they live and the experience of everyday, the everyday experience, it influences the language. So for kava in the central division, we would use kava as clapping of the hands, but in the western division, they would use kava as that. So we respect the different signs that they have, the sign variations that we have in the different parts of Fiji.
Thank you. So the next question is sign language the same or different from spoken language? Rachel?
Yes, thank you. As Krish was demonstrating before, the way that we would talk about a cat sleeping under the table in English and in Fiji Sign Language that he demonstrated are very different. So the grammar and the syntax of these languages are going to be very different. And I'm going to expand on that just a little bit. In spoken languages, when we are going to connect different words together, we call that syntax. In that grammar, we have to say one word and then another word and then another word and then another word. So these are sequential. They go one after another. In sign language, as Krishner demonstrated earlier, all of these different grammatical elements can happen at the same time. So we have simultaneity or simultaneous grammar. So as Krishner was showing, you can have some of the grammatical facial expressions, like the tilt of a head or the raised eyebrows, can show grammar, and that can be happening at the same time as a sign on your hands. And so the grammar, instead of being one after another in a sequence, can happen simultaneously in sign languages.
Thank you. Krish, would you like to add to that answer? Or shall we go to the next question? It's good? Okay. And so that leads us to the complexity of sign language. Is it more complex or less complex than spoken language? Krish, would you like to answer that for us?
So when we're talking about complexity and the different grammatical features or the grammatical structures of the words, of how we place words. So for English sentence, the structure goes as subject, verb, and object, right? In sign language, this differs. We use it as object, subject, and verb. The verb is always at the end of the sentence. For spoken language, English language, we would identify the subject first, right? So for example, and then we'd add the action, right, which is the verb. Right? For example, the cat is sleeping underneath the table. Okay, so in sign language, this is a bit different because we have the 5 parameters at work simultaneously, like Rachel says. Okay, if you miss one of this one of the parameters, we will lose the meaning of the sentence.
Okay, can you give us an example? For example, in a spoken language, we would say, let's go to the shop. How would that sound in sign language?
Shop, we go. Shop, you establish the shop first. Shop, I go.
Thank you. Thanks, Trish. Would any of our panel members like to add to that? If not, okay. Now the next question is around families of deaf children. And this is specifically to Lupe. What support is available for families of deaf children, and what challenges do parents or their families face? And so for you, Lupe, in your situation in Tonga, would you like to talk about your experience as a parent?
Yes, thank you very much for hosting. I just want to clarify how important it is for the family to have a strong support system at home, and to identify and acknowledge that there is a deaf child in that family. Families of deaf children really need the support, encouragement, and clear information from the very beginning. Many parents feel worried when they first learn that they have a deaf child, especially parents that has never engaged with any deaf person, or even when there is no organization to guide them, to help guide them, and no knowledge at all with sign language. And this is me speaking of experience, because I am that very parent that had no knowledge of sign language when I found out my daughter was deaf. I didn't know anyone that was a deaf to help me understand this new journey that my daughter and I was going through. And there was no organization at that time in Tonga to help us, guide us through this journey. And so with that experience, I really had to cope in trying to figure out things along the way. I had to figure out how to communicate with my daughter first. And then I realized that sign language is their form of communication. And because not knowing how to go about with this, I ended up learning American Sign Language, not understanding that Tonga is in a Pacific region where there are more similar sign language close by with the neighboring islands, countries around. So all those things I didn't understand that at the time. So those were some challenges, and I'm pretty sure a majority of parents here in Tonga goes through those challenges, because the deaf community here in Tonga, they are not really supported from home. It's very, very important with this experience with my daughter, the importance of family supporting from home, and for families to accept their child and include their deaf child, in every conversation, every decision making, that it's included with them, and to engage them with family activities, or if the family is going out to the community, it's very important for the family to support the child. When the child is supported greatly from home, and especially from their parents, their child will feel the confidence. They will feel a very different confidence that would be born into them from their family members. And also what I've learned from my daughter with this experience is they are multilingual. My daughter understands sign language. She learned sign language. She understands spoken language as well, and she understands the written language all together. And I try and advocate for other parents too to normalize these behaviors at their house. It's okay for their child to understand multilingual language. Yeah, and the support system. I really encourage the support system. That is the main base of a deaf child growing up is the support system, and then later on connecting, networking with a deaf person or a deaf organization. Malo Alpito.
Thank you. Malo Lupe, you've raised a lot of very important information there, especially the importance of a support system from home.
Yes.
I've noticed in my experiences where parents would bring their deaf child to the school and leave all the responsibility to teachers without them even knowing the language. And I'm grateful for what you've highlighted and your experiences, the example that you are setting for parents and informing them about the importance of parents getting to understand their child, and normalizing them at home, that they are not different just because they are deaf. They're not different, but they are a child in the first place. This is my child. And the other parts of them is secondary, but as long as they can embrace them and provide the support that they will give to any child in the home is very important. Thank you, Lupe. And so now that we're talking about the support, we know, especially in Fiji, and I know it's happening around the region as well, that deaf students attending mainstream schools, because not all countries have special schools. We don't all have sign language interpreters available in classrooms. And so what support is available for teachers of deaf children? I do know that Keisha is a teacher aide in one of the schools in Kiribati. I would like her to answer this question first, and just to share with us her experiences as a deaf teacher aide. What is her role? Because it will also highlight to us the importance of including deaf adults in the classrooms as role models to students. Thank you, Keisha.
Okay. Like what I've said before, I'm currently working at the mainstream school as a teacher assistant, and my main job is to assist a deaf student in the classroom. At the high school level. So what I'm doing is to take the note, copy the notes from the class teacher. I take the note from the teacher who is going to teach the next day. So what I would do is to summarize and simplify the note and use simple English for them to understand easily. And my second main job as a teacher assistant is to support the sign language interpreters. So supporting the sign language interpreters by using the So I break down the information from the sign language interpreters into a deaf sign. So for them, the deaf student to understand. And that's it. That's the thing that I do in the classroom is supporting the deaf student in their reading. Like to summarize the all note. But how will I do that? I work together with my sign language interpreters, supporting the deaf student to understand more easily. And that also from my experience as a teacher aide. And I think that job is not easy. So every time in the classroom, for example, activities, I always sit together with interpreters and the deaf student, assist them in their activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Keisha. I just have a follow-up question for you. In what way is your school supporting you in your role?
How do I get a support?
Yes.
I do get a support from the Ministry of Education. By providing sign language interpreters, because they are like paid from the Ministry of Education.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for highlighting your role to us. And I know that you play a crucial role. Like I said before, as you're there as a role model for our deaf students, so that when they see you, they know that one day they can be like you, or even, aspire to be someone who will contribute back to society. So thank you. Now to Krish and Rachel, what kinds of support can we provide to teachers of deaf students where there are no sign language interpreters and there are no deaf adults to support them, someone like Keisha? What is your advice to classroom teachers?
Thank you. So I think that deaf children should be provided with visual aids to establish visual learning. Because for deaf students, they would depend on visual. They're very visual, they're visual learners. They depend on their eyes and they learn through their eyes because they cannot hear. So pictorials provided, subject provided through pictorials and added in hand signs. So when the deaf students are looking at for example, like if you have a picture of a baby and you show the sign of a baby, the deaf student would understand that that is the word baby with the word written on the picture, and that is the sign for baby. So it's very important that we take basic steps for the child to understand, and they can then learn to voice, learn the signs, learn the different signs. So at home, they become more expressive. So, for example, when children are when we are babies, from a very young age, the brain is sort of like a sponge. It absorbs information very fast. So, when a child is born deaf, it's very important for the child to be learning sign language as well. Right? It advances the child's knowledge. I think that's very important. And also, deaf language, an example that Kesha has said there, that Kesha has shared it's very important that we teach the child their language from when they are little. Right. So, for example, like Kessia has become an example in school, and the deaf know that if Kessia has reached that level, we can also do that. We are visual learners, we are signers, and we are given the freedom and the space to practice the same. Thank you.
Thanks, Krish. Rachel, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I'll try to be quick. I agree with everything that Keshia and Krishnir have shared. And I just want to say again how important it is for teachers, just like Lupe was sharing about families. It's important for the families to learn sign language. If you're a teacher and you have a student in your classroom who's deaf, it's important for you to try to find what resources are available in your country to learn sign language and how can you connect with deaf adults in your country. I know that here in Vanuatu, one of the projects that I've supported is the Ministry of Education has gathered signs that are used from all over the different provinces of Vanuatu, and they have put together an online dictionary. So if a teacher is in a village and a deaf student comes to that school, the teacher could look up what some of the signs are to start using those with the child. And like Krishnir was saying, it's very important for deaf children to be exposed to and learn how to sign when they are young. And that is the foundation they will use to be able to learn their literacy and all of their other skills. So I would encourage teachers to make sure that they are learning the sign with whatever resources are available. It's also, they could show a picture to the child and have the child sign to them, what is the sign for this? And then the teacher could learn from the child the sign as well, and then introduce the English word, just like Krishnir was saying. So you can go from picture to the sign and then to the written language. And if you don't know the sign, you can ask the child how they would sign that item.
Thank you. But can we use deaf children as a resource to teach teachers and other students sign language?
Yes, absolutely. Deaf children can teach the other students sign language when they play with them, and they are going to be the experts on the language and can help the teachers also learn the language that they use. So sometimes as teachers, we think that, oh, I have the knowledge and I need to give it to the child. But also, I spent a lot of years in the classroom, as many of you here have, and we all know that we also learn from our children. And for deaf students, especially for people like me who are hearing, we need to be learning sign language from the deaf students.
Thank you. And now, while we're still on this topic of teaching, how can we teach deaf children to read? And what accommodations or adjustments are needed to make that happen? Vishnia?
So I've had the experience in this trying to read and understand the structure of English. So like Lupe had shared, and we encourage children, parents of deaf children, to encourage them to read. So I attended special school in Suva, and also in Singatoka. That's when we established the signs and the spoken English. The parents would come together and we'd have a sign club where parents joined and they would learn sign. And we'd continue, we'd have meetings where the deaf taught the signs and the parents learned and they'd give back to the child and the child would teach. So we had this interaction with the parents. It's very, very important that when you learn sign and when you are at home with your child, it's easy for you to sign structures in the written language, and you can support in because you understand deaf structure. It's you would support your child in understanding the same.
Thank you. I know that the information that has been shared this afternoon is very helpful, especially to the teachers who are joining us. Now, the next question focuses on accessibility of public services. Yeah? How accessible are public services across the region? And what more could be done and what is needed? Who'd like to start with us? Maybe Lupe, what is your experience like in Tonga? And then we'll go to Keisha. What services are available?
Yes. So here in Tonga, we have the Tonga National Deaf Association. The Tonga National Deaf Association is a new organization that was just established last year. So everything is still new. We have a special school here in Tonga as well, with Ngeleia Special School. We have a few of our deaf kids attending that school. It's a primary level, and we have a few interpreters there. I think 3 interpreters there as well. And I think that's just it. With the Tonga National Deaf Association, we promote and try and break barriers with sign language and trying to normalize sign language here in Tonga. Tonga is very behind. I'm pretty sure very behind more than all of you guys in the Pacific. We are just new to everything. So sign language in Tonga is not normalized here in Tonga, which that is the sad reality here in Tonga. It's not normalized, and these are the barriers that we really try and break as an organization. But with the support of families of the deaf child, their child are able to success and build their capacity within here in Tonga. They have the right. We try and help them understand that they have the right to be in the community, in public services. They have the right to be in church, participate in sports. They have rights in these functions, whereas normally here in Tonga, our deaf community does not engage in these activities that is already here in Tonga. So we try and promote our deaf community, try and encourage them and lift them up and make them feel accepted and included within the community and also the society as well.
Thank you, Lupe.
Hello.
Keisha, would you like to share a bit on accessibility to services or public services in Kiribati?
Testing.
Yeah, we can hear you. Continue. Sorry, we can't hear your interpreter, Keisha.
So here in Kiribati, what's the service that Thank you, Ruby, for your sharing. In Kiribati, we have Kiribati Deaf Association, already established a few years back. And we also provide sign language interpreters. But the problem, interpreters, there are few sign language interpreters in here. So Kiribati Deaf Association is now doing the training for sign language interpreters, so they can help deaf in the communities to provide services, public services, in order to provide accommodation for deaf. So this training will continue because now that's the problem, a lack of sign language interpreters. Thank you.
Naka, thank you. Now, on to our second last question about sign languages across the region. What are some things that are still yet to be done in terms of developing of sign language or supporting our deaf community in the region? What is available? And maybe we could talk about, okay, we now know what is available, and maybe what are some of the support that can still be provided so that accessible sign language is accessible to everyone, or that our the deaf in these regions have access to information wherever they go or wherever they participate. Who would like to answer that? Rachel? Would you
I
like
can
to
start. Yes, I can start, and then maybe others can add from their experiences. One of the things that is often needed before other advocacy work is some sort of documentation of the sign language that is being used in the country. As a linguist, that's what I think about first. And in many of the countries in the Pacific Islands, we don't have documentation of those sign languages. So here in Vanuatu, we have the dictionary I shared, but that's all that we have. And in many countries across the region, the deaf associations are asking for being able to set up dictionaries and grammars. These are necessary to train interpreters and to train teachers of the deaf. And so I think one important thing that is needed is more research and documentation of the languages that are being used so that that can be part of the advocacy work that the deaf associations can then do. When you have the language documented, the deaf association can then go to the government and say, look, we have our language, this is our language, and we need support to be able to access services, and that documentation can help to be able to get that access. So I think documentation, interpreter training, similarly in Vanuatu, we have 1 or 2 people who have been through some online interpreter training, but we don't have any way for a deaf person to get an interpreter unless they personally know someone and can bring someone with them. So a family member or a teacher that they know, they can go along with them to the doctor, but there's no way for them to request an interpreter and have that service provided.
Thank you. Yeah. Krish, would you like to add to what Rachel has mentioned?
Thank you. So in Fiji, on accessibility, we have the physical accessibility and others, but the language, we don't have that yet. We don't have the budget or the budget that's focused on this. So I take my hat off to Fiji Association of the Deaf for the advocacy it's been carrying out through the years. Now we have sign language interpreting services available in the hospital that's remunerated, and it's starting. The project is starting. We haven't gone into the different divisions. So the interpreters that go to that particular hospital, the main hospital in Suva in Fiji, they get remunerated. But this, we are trying to spread this. We're advocating to spread this across other divisions. In our education system with the Ministry of Education, we have deaf students that usually go to one school because the interpreters are usually focused in that school. So when the deaf attend a school, the government pays the interpreters. The interpreting services is a paid service. So the deaf child from primary school can transition into high school with interpreters available. There are some services, and we're advocating to expand accessibility to other services, especially in sign language. Fiji Association of the Deaf is hosts sign language classes, basic, intermediate, and advanced. And for this, they encourage the public to come in and learn sign language so that when they understand the language and they can provide wherever they work, they can communicate with the deaf openly, freely. The deaf get to access those services. We have a Fiji Sign Language Dictionary, but we have not yet. We have to review that and maybe make another one, make a new one to that edition. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm thankful at least that there's a lot of things happening, and we also know that there's a lot of things that are still yet to be done. Now, our last question is on policies. How inclusive are the policies available for the need of to the need of deaf people? Do policies capture the need efficiently? What do you think? Krish or even Kesha in Kiribati? Krish, okay, you can start. Are the needs of the deaf highlighted in policies, in government policies?
Krish just said, Keshe, would you like to start?
Okay, so I'll start. We have legislations and policies in Fiji, and we have, but however, we haven't, it's not, the policies and the legislations is not covering all the work or all the aspects that for deaf access. We have the Act, Disability Act of 2018, and we have the Fiji National Disability Policy that was reviewed and launched late last year. And in the Constitution, in Fiji's Constitution, we don't have specific impairment access, but we have the use of sign language that's also embedded in Fiji's Constitution. And also in Parliament, we have in every sitting of Parliament, there are interpreters that are live during the full week of the Parliament sitting. And we have pieces of work that has been achieved, but we don't have the resources. We've established a sign bank, but we have not really had that in use or to have that legislated to use in country. If we have a budget that is going to support this work, then I think that the work would be very extensive. We can do a lot of work. We're still advocating to have this, so put through the Act, accessibility to sign language, so that there's no one left behind. And sign language is just something else that everybody else can use. And the deaf, so for us, for the deaf community here in Fiji, we can access anything in any services and use sign language to communicate.
Thank you. Keisha, would you like to answer that question as well? Are the needs of the deaf in Kiribati captured in policy?
Thank you for this question. Honestly, I don't have any idea about this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, how about Vanuatu?
Yes, in Vanuatu, I'm most familiar with the policies around education, and education for the deaf is part of the inclusive education policy of the Ministry of Education in the Curriculum Development Unit. And the dictionary resource, which one of our panelists, Leneker Thomas, who couldn't actually join us, he worked on that project with the Ministry of Education. And that project has been officially recognized by the Ministry of Education and I believe the Ministry of Justice as well. So here in Vanuatu, there is a lot of effort on the ground with some of the ministers here to make more inclusive and accessible policies. I think that more, like Krishnir said, that some more resources to be able to implement those policies would be very important. I think that people are very willing to do the right thing, but are needing more resources and support to know how to really support the deaf community here.
Thank you, Rachel. And I guess the same goes for Tonga. I know you're doing a lot of advocacy. And but Lupe, would you like to add about policies and the needs of our deaf community there?
Yes. Sorry, as I mentioned earlier, because the Tonga National Deaf Association is very new, and the policy here in Tonga, it is improving towards inclusion, but unfortunately for our deaf community, there hasn't been a direct there hasn't been a direct I don't know how to say it, but the deaf community is still way behind. The policy here in Tonga, it is improving in trying to accept all forms of disability and inclusion in decision making, but directly for the deaf community, it still hasn't. We're still behind in a lot of things. We're still trying to normalize sign language here in Tonga, at least normalize sign language here in Tonga, and to recognize sign language here in Tonga, and for interpreters. Those things are big things here in Tonga, because for our people, a majority of our Tongans don't understand the deaf culture, don't understand the deaf people, don't understand sign language, and don't understand when there is an interpreter present in an occasion or activity. A lot of people don't understand that, and we're still behind. Like in Parliament, we don't have any interpreters anywhere in Parliament. In news reports, we are still behind in a lot of things due to our deaf community. We're still behind in education. Sad reality here in Tonga, we haven't had a deaf person graduate with with a form of certification, high school level. So those are things that we are still trying to implement and encourage from home, to believe in their child, that it is possible for their children to prosper in life, and with our guidance and the family support, we believe that someday close by Tonga will be alongside you, brothers and sisters from the Pacific. Malo.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Lupe. Yeah, don't lose hope. There was a time when Fiji was in that stage. And a lot of advocacy and a lot of work has gone into moving the work forward. And I know that one day you will look back and be thankful for all the work that you have done. And we are here with you, all the way supporting you as brothers and sisters from across the region. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that question and answer has brought us to the end of this afternoon session. And we would like to give this time to anyone who has any question for our panels. Please feel free to turn on your mic or write in the chat. Thank you. Okay, there is a question here from Tanzila Saba. What kinds of technology, it's in the chat, what kinds of technology exist to support sign language communication, and are they being used in Fiji or in the wider Pacific region? That's open to any of you to answer. Thanks, Krish.
Krishna speaking. So with technology, there is AI and also chat G. Yeah. There are apps, speech to text apps, but they are not really capturing fully 100% accuracy. And also with captioning. So it depends on the accents and the voiceover that's happening. It's not really 100%. And as I've just mentioned, it depends on the accents of the speakers. And because it's widely used, originated from overseas, it's only normal for the English speakers.
Right. Thank you. Keisha, sorry, I noticed a while ago that you had your hand up. Did you want to say something? I'm sorry if I missed that.
My apologies. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My apologies. It's not a question, it's not a comment, but just an add-on from what I just forgot to mention regarding the policy. In the Ministry of Education here in Kiribati, we have the policy where included everyone with or without disabilities to learn. Thank you.
Thanks, Keisha. Now, there's another question in the chat box, and the question is from Anne Horton. The question is, in what ways can you foresee AI being helpful? Thank you, Rachel.
I will start, but I welcome people to jump in. While AI is very useful with languages that are written down, it's not yet very good at visual languages. There are some deaf researchers that I know based in Europe who are trying to work on having AI be able to handle visual language better and be able to handle sign language. But if you think back to when we were talking about the grammar of sign language being simultaneous, some of it's on the face, some of it's whether your eyebrows are up or down, some of it's the shape of your mouth at the same time that you're doing a sign. This is a little too complex for where AI is right now. AI models are 100% based on text for the most part, the ones that are being used. So there are researchers who are trying to make something that could be more useful for deaf communities. But I think that the use right now would be more for deaf individuals to be able to put in complex text in a written language and get easier to read summaries, possibly. But when we look at how AI is interacting with sign language, the technology's not quite there yet.
Interesting. Thank you, Rachel. Krish? Thanks. You can go ahead.
I'd like to just add to that, yes. We also, there are games that's included in, that's used in sign language, that also has the 5 features of signs like expressions, and all these 5 features are there, and also with the alphabets there are, and widely used in America, and how you can use those 5 features. It's able to capture that, and then it's put into text, and then you raise your hands. You can, and the words are there. It just comes out when you put in the signs. It's used in the games. It starts off in the English language. There is actually there is an app.
And what is that app called?
I think it's Sign A. Let me check to confirm. I'm going to type it down in the chat box.
Thanks. Thank you, Krish. Now we have, maybe this will be our last question, or second last. It's from Telesia to Lupe. Okay, does the Tongan Sign Language derive from any existing sign language? For instance, Australian or American Sign Language? That's in the chat box. Also, do people use home signs that have been accepted into the Tongan Sign Language?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Okay, it's in the chat. I'm trying to retrieve it. Sorry. Does the Tongan Sign Language derive from any existing sign language? For example, Australian or American Sign Language?
Yes.
That's the first question. Yeah, continue.
Yes. So, we use Auslan. Formally we use Auslan, Australian Sign Language, where it was introduced from a volunteer early 2000, back early 2000, where that was when first sign language was introduced here to Tonga. However, we do have local signs where everyone else uses their own local signs. Other deaf, a lot of the deaf community uses their own signs, and because we haven't really officially documented any of these signs, that everyone has their own form of sign language. So that's a big problem here in Tonga, because so that's one of our main focus currently at the Tonga National Deaf Association, where we are trying to document our signs. And so when we are currently using formally the Auslan sign language. It's translating from English to Tongan. But mind you, our Tongan language, we have more meaningful words that cannot be translated into English. So that is why it's very important for us to document and have our own dictionary here in Tonga. And that is what we are currently working on, is to have where we host different classes with our deaf community, and collecting the their local sign language in how they see the language, the words, and all that. So that is what we are currently doing at the Tonga National Deaf Association. But formally here in Tonga, we have been using Auslan, and we include our local signs. But because it hasn't been officially documented that everyone in the deaf community have their own form of sign language, but we still respect each sign. We always have to ask, what do you mean by that, or to elaborate what they are trying to explain, and then from there we will try and understand. But at the end of the day, we understand each other here in Tonga, and yeah. Malo, hope that answers
Thank you.
the question.
Yep, you have. Okay, I'm just conscious of time. Right, I've been told that there are a few deaf participants who might have questions, but I can't see them on the screen. If they have a sign language interpreter, or maybe Aurelia or Gail could interpret for them. Quite honestly, I can't see them.
Can we maybe spotlight Matthew of Samoa?
Okay,
Here
I
we
can
go.
see him.
Here's
Thank
Matthew.
you.
Good, thank you. Sorry, I just Bulavinaka. Hello, hi everybody, Talofa. My name is Matthew, and my sign name looks like that, and I'm from Samoa. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's just a bit of movement, and we've been busy with this session. I'd like to share. And it's very interesting discussions for a teacher, the teacher aide, for Krish, Kessia, and it's very exciting. Your sharing today has been very exciting. Um, I'd like to ask if there are any plans to establish a regional language, because I feel like Samoa is left behind, is a bit behind or delayed in the practices of deaf teachers or things like that. We don't know how to achieve this. So this is one of the barriers that we continue to have access into these types of activities or work. Is there an opportunity for a meeting for the regional deaf to come on board, or maybe we can come to Fiji um, for a meeting to maybe establish or share experiences of the deaf in the region and how we can best learn from other countries or be made aware, or how we can advocate and break barriers together within the region. I'm seeing this session, I'm in this session, and I'm very, very excited on the ways forward that we can work together and achieve, and this can immensely benefit our deaf children. Thank you.
Yeah. With Krish, would you like to, given that you travel around the region a lot and are involved in the deaf project in the region, would you like to answer that? Very good
Sorry,
point.
Kesha had her hand up.
Okay,
Sorry.
sure. Thanks, Kesha. Go ahead.
You're just reminding Kesa we cannot hear her interpreter.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Apologies. One thing that is very important is the encouragement from the Ministry of Education in trying to support the disability in Kiribati. Ministry of Education from the government including like what is mentioned in the inclusive education policy, is trying to include all children with disabilities in their policy, not for deaf, but for all people with disabilities. I mean, students with disabilities to learn.
Thank you, Kesha. Would anyone else like to, any of the panel members like to answer or contribute? Thank you, Krish.
I'd just like to add to the question. Thank you, Matthew, for the question. For sign language teachers and sign language teachers and school teachers, we need to keep them at a separate role. So we need qualified sign language teachers to be able. So for us here, we have in the university, we have qualified interpreters that come to service the students. And for deaf teachers, they have to have the opportunity to learn sign language. I hope that answers the question. Yes, thank you. Matthew speaking.
Thank you. Now there's a question that popped up. Do you mean certificate in deaf studies? For example, teaching New Zealand Sign Language course? Because Chris, you mentioned that there is a need for qualified teachers of the deaf, maybe. I think that's what you said, a qualified sign language interpreters in the classroom. And so the question from Sarah is, do you mean certificate in deaf studies? Yeah, it's in the chat.
Sarah? Yeah, down there. Can you spotlight Sarah? That was a request from Krish. So I can see her?
The
Could she
question
put
is in the
her-
chat.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sarah Pivak. Yes?
If she could
Yes.
put her hand up and her camera on, I can spotlight her and find her quickly.
Great. So Sarah is signing. Rachel? Sarah is actually signing the same. Okay, sorry.
Gil, why don't you interpret?
Sarah is just signing the same thing that she had typed about that. Did you mean, she's asking that the deaf teachers to learn? I'm Sarah from New Zealand. And for that course, do you mean that they need to be qualified to do that training, sign language training? And what are the steps?
She's also asking about whether other countries have any training courses for teachers and whether everyone would need to come to New Zealand for the type of course and licensure, or if does Fiji have this? Does Fiji have some small training available that could provide licensure?
No,
Great, thank you, Sarah, for that question. Here in Fiji, so we do not have certified teachers to teach sign language to the deaf. We just do have the trainings for the 3 levels in basic, intermediate, and then advanced. And then they're put into professional development trainings to become interpreters. So we see that after the training, if you're interested to further the course, then you go on to that. But there is not really any certified course, and also because of the funding, there are certain projects for deaf education in the Pacific. There was, and doing research. We've had that data and the information, but we are hoping with fingers crossed and hoping that the next phase of the implementations will happen. Oh, Rachel is speaking. Rachel?
I can summarize, but my sign language is ASL.
Yeah.
So she said that this is a really important for them to have the course, and especially to include Fiji culture and deaf culture, and to have the full training available to the teachers who will need to be going into that. But it needs to include not just sign language levels, but also Fiji deaf culture.
absolutely. Yes, we agree with you, Sarah. Okay, we have 2 minutes before we finish, but I can see Noah from the Fiji Deaf Association with his hands raised. So Noah, you will be our last participant to ask the question before we close, because we have to close by 5:30. Thank you, Noah.
Vinaka, thank you, Madam Sita. And also thank you that we have the opportunity to be here. We're here joining in from the conference room at the complex in Brown Street. So talking about the deaf teachers, we also have some interpreters that's joining and watching this from Tonga, Vanuatu, Kiribati. And I'd like to talk from Tomasi will talk. We'd like to just share something about the sign language here and the deaf in the deaf school, from baby to until they are working. And second, I'd like to share my experience on the language issues. I'd like to welcome Tomasi.
Thank you, Noah. Welcome, Tomasi.
Ulang Bulavinaka. I'll be brief. trying to adjust the laptop and my position. Okay. I hope you can all see me clearly. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Sita, and thank you for having us today. Salutations to everyone who have contributed. I teach at the Gospel School for the Deaf, and there's a few of us. So we're using different signs. Okay, GSD. Yeah. I teach at Gospel School for the Deaf, and this is the sign for GSD, Gospel School for the Deaf. And through the work, 26 students, we have about 26 students that have accessed the education. And have come through the education system. Now compare that to how when they transition. So we're trying to advocate from kindergarten to the primary school. So what we see is when they're using the visual sign, like Krishna had mentioned, that we use a visual system of communicating, of signing. And there are a lot of gaps. We see that there are a lot of gaps. With the hearing, they're very quick to hear and absorb and learn. And they're hearing things 24 hours every day. And that's how quickly they learn. But for the deaf children are very limited because there is short time of communicating, of integrating with other deaf people. Now, from the ages 3, so this is about 2 years ago, my experience. Now the gaps that we see that they're missing out, no, and they're trying to learn. And as we've mentioned, that the deaf children are visual learners. And they're seeing deaf, and it is our natural way of communicating using our own diverse signs. And also with the children, when they are interacting with each other, no words, but just pictures, and then signing. So there are a lot of words that you see that like the home words or the signs, that's for the hearing children, students. And for the deaf students, we do away with the words, and it is just signing, full signing. And for class 1, for year 1. And we believe that is a stronger foundation to helping them advance in their learning, gradual learning. So we see that they have achieved when they come to the deaf school and they're learning in sign. But when there is no sign, there's no help with the work. So my question is, Madam Sita, does the Ministry of Education policy that all schools in Fiji, kindergarten, yeah, What does the government or the Ministry of Education say in the policy about? Yeah, for kindergartens, age 5. Is that policy, does that include all hearing children and children with disabilities? Because we see that there are a lot of gaps, and also with the social interactions, the deaf culture, one must think, or like Krishna had mentioned, that you start communicating with the child when they are in the womb, when they are born, from infancy to toddler, and then later in life, but you start communicating with the children. But what we see here is there are a lot of gaps from kindergarten, age 3 onwards.
Thank you, Tomasi. Yes, all children from kindergarten up to secondary school have the right to education. They can access sign language interpreters. However, it really depends on the number of sign language interpreters that is available in Fiji. Because even we have deaf in mainstream secondary, mainstream primary, who do not have access to sign language interpreters, mainly because we do not have enough. That's also the other issue that we have in Fiji. Okay, yeah, I'd like that question, like us to pause and conclude with Thomas's experience and the questions, because we have really gone over time. We're supposed to finish at 5 and it is 5:38 and we are still on. But it has been an interesting discussion. A lot of good questions have come up, a lot of very good information, thought-provoking discussions have happened. And maybe, just maybe, we could ask for a follow-up to this webinar if there is a lot of interest out there. And so on behalf of the team, thank you. Thank you to everyone who have joined us this afternoon. A big vinakavakalevu to our panel members. We really appreciate your time, and we appreciate the time that participants have taken to be with us. And we can see the conference room at the FNCDP office. Thank you for all those who are there in the conference room. Those are our deaf participants in Fiji. Thank you for participating. And I know that the work has started, the work will continue, and we will get better at this. And from us, Pinakavakalevu, Malo, and have a good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. Pinaka.